who you're with, and then let's just dig in, right?
All right, great.
We're here talking about vacations because of you.
Yep. My name is Matt Slotemaker. I am a partner, director of video production at Vexing Media. I've been there about 2 years. Prior to that, I was solo, running 12 Acre Films from, what was that, 2015 to whatever it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And doing video production all the way through. I've been in Spokane since 2011 when I moved here from Pullman, when it didn't make sense to live in a college town because I didn't fit in anymore. That's kind of a joke, but kind of true. I graduated with a degree in advertising in '08, which was just a really bad time to graduate with any kind of degree, but especially one in an industry that was actively being turned upside down.
Wait,
by the
what's
Great
your degree
Recession.
in again?
Advertising.
Oh, so mine's in video production. So we both kind of got degrees that were weird
Yeah.
to have.
I mean,
and then we flipped.
you're supposed to be asking me the question.
I know,
I'll
I'm sorry.
ask you this. Do you feel that that degree was essential to your career path?
So I'll give you the short version of that because I'm not the guest. But I saw that movie, The Insider, with Russell Crowe and Al Pacino, where Russell Crowe plays and it was based on a true story. Russell Crowe is the tobacco industry whistleblower, and Al Pacino is the 60 Minutes producer that broke the story that the tobacco giants knew tobacco and nicotine was bad for you. So I saw that movie and I was like, I want to change the world through news. And I was at Western at the time. They didn't have a formal program. And so I thought, well, I'll go to, they have a college there where you can design your own degree. And I designed a degree in video and audio production. Came back to Spokane to work in the news industry. Thought I could start here. It's a smaller market. Worked at KXOI. Was completely disillusioned by the news industry at the time, which was shrinking. But now, they can't hire enough people. That's a whole other story. But I was able to parlay that into a marketing job. So it's proven useful in the sense that it was the foundation for where I ended up, but I rarely use those skills now. I dust them off.
Same.
Yeah, so ish, I would say.
Yeah, I think having a degree is good.
Yes.
Just in a general sense, specifically that degree for my career path, it has had little influence.
Yeah.
The skills and friends I made along the way were a lot more.
There you go.
So yeah, that was 2008. Moved here in 2011, and then I've been pursuing video production ever since. So the reason we're talking about this, and if you look over on these screens on the stream or in the room,
you can see it the stream can see it. I think they can see a
Yeah,
bit
I
of
think
it.
they
I'm looking
moved
at
this
it
camera
here
over.
to watch for
Okay,
questions.
cool.
Yeah, so we're good.
So in 2017, if you guys recall, there was a solar eclipse, and it passed kind of left to right across the country. And I went down to Central Oregon, and I did this tilty thing on Google Maps, and I found a mountain peak that was looking over the John Day River Valley. And I thought that'd be a really cool place to see this eclipse because I'm high up and I can look down on a valley. And if I'm lucky, I don't know how eclipses work, but if I'm lucky, I might be able to see the shadow as well as the eclipse in the sky above me. And turns out I wasn't the only one who thought that. And so this is just a logging road in the middle of nowhere in Central Oregon, which has a lot of nowhere. And there were 50 other people there, and everyone I talked to, somebody had done exactly what I'd done to bring their group there to see the eclipse from that one spot because they were hoping they could see the moon shadow as well as the eclipse in the sky. And it worked out. It was really cool. I loved it. And I thought if I can see an eclipse again with my family, I need to do everything in my power to do that because it was such a powerful, beautiful, spiritual experience. I loved it. It was amazing. And so it didn't take more than a Google search to realize that 2024 was our next chance to see it within the United States, but it was farther away. So it went through south, if you recall, from Mazatlan, Mexico, through Mexico up into Texas, and then kind of across. I'm gonna try to switch my brain here so you guys can tell, up through the east part of the country that way. So so summer of 2023, I'd already looked on Airbnb and VRBO to look for what if we just flew into a location and saw it there. Everything was booked out before.
Those people, there's people who are really intense about seeing.
Yeah.
Because of exactly what you said is that they see it and then they get hooked.
Yep. And way in advance.
Yeah.
When this is happening.
We're
and
pretty
so
good
by the time Airbnb and VRBO reservations were even open, everything was either already booked out or too expensive for me. and our 4 kids. So, so my wife and I hatched this plan. Let's just drive. We'll just drive to it. I wanted to go to Mexico. My wife was like, "We're not going to Mexico." I was like, "Okay, we don't have to go to Mexico, but we can go to somewhere in the United States." And Texas was about the closest place. So, so we bought a trailer, fall of 2023, and I had that whole winter because we had to leave. The eclipse was April 8th, 2024. So just over a year ago. And so we bought a trailer, and I put like solar on it and kind of did some refitting, moved some things around to make it fit for our family. And then I was going to tow it with my F-150, just a regular old pickup. 6 people in a crew cab pickup it works on paper, right? There's enough seatbelts for everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a middle seat in the
Exactly.
front, but not.
There's not a lot of room. And then on Marketplace, on Facebook Marketplace, came up a van, a 15-passenger Ford van with, from 1998, with the legendary V10 engine. And I say legendary because this is a workhorse engine.
And they
does
put
a
them
lot
on campers too,
They
right?
do. My
And
parents.
So, yeah, if you know anything about this world, like it is the sought-after engine.
Yeah, it's a working engine. It does a lot and has a slight.
I promise we'll get to
reputation.
how this relates to work in a minute.
No, this is just me being nerdy because I like cars. It has a tendency to spit out spark plugs, which can be a problem if you're like in the middle of nowhere in Nevada.
Yeah.
But anyway, it came up for $2,500, this 15-passenger van with the engine that I think is cool. And so I was like, I can't not buy it. And actually, I think I can put it up on the screen with my phone because it is a little bit unique. And you'll see why in a moment.
Technology for the win, if you can do it.
Okay, it might not work. It was owned by Cattails, the animal rescue up north. And they had decaled it, and my screen share isn't coming up. I'll give it a second to figure itself out. It had big cat decals over the whole van. And they'd baked on there because it'd been like over 20 years that these things were on there, and it passed hands a couple times, and it just was a very unique looking van. And the cats are still on there for the most part. And it just means that when you're going down the highway, people are like what? What's on that van? Anyway, so we drove down to Texas. We took a 3-week vacation. There just happened to be like a gap in work that perfectly lined up. And I was like, let's just go. And we loved it. And we loved it so much that we decided to try it again. So even before we were home, we were already planning out this 2025 trip.
Nice.
Which you're seeing here. So this is Yosemite. This is, I put a GoPro on our windshield on the van as we were driving, just so I could see like sped up what it is we're seeing just for my own personal benefit. But I love like slow TV style media content. And this is right up my alley. So I enjoy this kind of thing. It's interesting, but it's not too interesting. You can have it. If you guys find me boring, you can just look at this, and it'll be somewhat entertaining still. So the motivation for 2024 was to see the eclipse. And then the motivation for 2025, there wasn't really like a specific event that we were going for. But as 2024 wrapped up and we came into 2025, my dad's cancer diagnosis went terminal, and he ended up passing away in February of this year. And so then we had to shift gears and just focus, like doing a lot of family stuff, helping my mom, planning the funeral, planning for the funeral. I'm the video guy. So I put together the slideshow, scanned in all the old photos, picked the songs, and then gave a speech there. So a lot of my attention focused to that. And in the interim, we also upgraded trailers. And then I had to do add solar and stuff to this new trailer as well. And then the funeral was the week before we left.
Whoa.
And then that week, between the funeral and our departure, there was no time to really prepare. So when we left on this trip, I had never actually hitched the trailer up to the van to tow it and make sure everything worked, which kind of became a problem. But also that week before was very busy. There was just projects. We had an event, a building reveal for a client, and there was just a lot of stuff going on. And I didn't feel like I had a chance yet to disconnect or look into mentally prepare for this trip. And my wife and I talked about it. I was like, I just don't feel like I'm in the headspace to be just walking away on this trip for 3+ weeks, however long we're going to be gone. And it wasn't until what's your name? Dave. What you said before we started was it was day 4 on your Hawaiian vacation that you realized, like you had a moment in your head where you're like, this is vacation. When you kind of lost track of time, you felt a little maybe disconnected from like your regular routine, and things were just kind of like you were just able to live in the moment, and that took me about a week to get to, and that's when like the true like joy of vacation and the joy of this adventure started to really settle in, and that was. A little bit before, Josh had reached out to me back in the fall, and he was like, "What do you want to talk about for this business brew? Do you want to come and do a thing?" And I was like, "Well, here's a list of things we can talk about. Things that were like, kind of like present on my mind, just kind of like simmering in the back burner, the way things go." And then on this vacation, you checked in, and we were going back and forth, and I was like, "Do we want to talk about vacation? Is that weird? Is it?" I don't know, even a little bit inconsiderate, because not everybody has an opportunity to take a vacation.
I want to jump in there. You were actually concerned about that because one, not everybody can afford, whether time-wise, Charlene's a small business owner, I'm a small business owner, several of us are all, solopreneurs or small business owners, so we can't afford maybe to take the time off. And not from like a financial perspective so much as like, where's that time coming from? But then there is also the financial piece, and you were really concerned about that, and I think we'll be able to kind of navigate that space. But I think it's important that we acknowledge that we were very mindful that like not everybody gets to do this.
Especially as an adult working a job with kids.
Yeah.
Like a few of you shared when you were young, in your 20s, just after you got married, like that's when you can go on an adventure. You can go on, you can put it all on the line. Like, what do you have to lose? It's not like you have like a serious career that you've got to walk away from, or a house mortgage to pay, or a kid's school to miss. Like, there are a lot of factors that prevent us as adults engaged in life in the economy around us from like pulling away from that for a period of time to pursue something that is frivolous. And so I think the thing that we can talk about here, I hope, is that like it isn't as frivolous as you think it is, and that the things that you gain, the experiences that you can have, you bring back with you, and that can make you a better employee and a better person in your family and in your community, because you're able to like just unplug for a little bit, recharge, give yourself a different perspective. I would say there are different kinds of vacations, whether it's like a cruise or just like a beach house. This was not that. This is an effortful vacation. There wasn't like a lot of rest to be had, frankly, but there was still the ability to unplug. Sometimes I didn't even have a choice. Like when we were in Death Valley, there was no cell phone coverage. And
Yeah. We gotta. Who's got the mic? Oh, Charlene, you got the mic. Sorry, you're on mic duty. You didn't know. Yeah, jump in. By the way, we can ask questions. We don't have to just let Matt talk the whole time.
Please interrupt.
Well, first, my question actually, if I can remember, had two parts. But first, let me say, like, I kind of empathize what you went through, because when I said earlier that I had gone on vacation for, like this trip to Western Europe, that was actually a reward for myself, because I had to help my father die of cancer as well.
Yeah.
And that was a very arduous 12 months.
Yeah.
So I really get that. First off, one, when you were describing your trip and you said about day 4 you calmed down, right? Did you find that you were looking at your devices less and less as that progressed? And second off, when you also described vacations as frivolous, I'd like you to expand on that, because it's interesting to me, as Americans, we have this very deep puritanical work ethic that runs through our culture, and then anything that reflects any kind of a pleasure we see as frivolous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
To the thing you said about parents dying, I think a lot of our journeys, whether in this room or in the world, and I see it now in a way I didn't before, is those moments will cause us to reevaluate life and what is important to us, and whether it's like my kids love. No, I won't bother with that. But yeah, it happens. It happens to a lot of us, and there's a moment where you're like these things that we take for granted, maybe they're not just like permanent fixtures, right? And how do you pursue other things? So, and yeah, the puritanical view, I totally get that, and I think even like coming up, my parents would have espoused that and given me a little bit of that, but thankfully I'm a millennial, and I don't have to honor like any traditions or influences around me. Slightly sarcastic, but the reality is like there was, especially last year, there was this purpose, right? There was this idea in my head that I had of like, I want my family to see an eclipse, because eclipses are fantastic and amazing, and there is no other way to see one than to, like, there's no other similar kind of experience other than being there and seeing it. And so that was the whole like motivation for it. And then we liked it and we want to keep going. So that's how I broke out of that mindset.
Part two to that was
Oh, thank you.
what?
Devices.
Yeah, devices. Yeah.
Yes, I looked less. There was an element of like we used Apple CarPlay to navigate us. So there was an element like we needed devices and cell coverage to the best of our coverage availability. Also, this year I had to continue doing some work, but the longer we were on the road, the harder it was to get back into it. And until it really felt like pulling teeth to like fire up the laptop and get a little bit of stuff done. And there were moments where I didn't have a choice. Like we have to park in this park. You guys go play in that grassy field for a little bit. I gotta fire up this laptop and get stuff done. And I'm sorry, but I don't have another choice.
It's hard when you have, I work for myself, I own my own business. It's hard to try to step away all the time. Sometimes you can't. I know a lot of my vacations have been where I've had to do a little bit of work. And I think my biggest regret regarding that is not making more of an effort ahead of time, which you couldn't do this last time with your dad, but not making an effort ahead of time to be more unplugged and to be able to step back more. Because I think you can do it. You just have to be really intentional planning ahead, which again, you didn't have that luxury.
There was a lot of front loading, and that's one of the reasons why my week ahead of time was so insane.
Yeah.
Was I was like, I got to get this done now, because if I wait until we're on the road, it's not going to get done in
Sure.
time. So
We have
that was
another
that.
question.
What's up?
Well, what I was going to say was that you're making me go back in history in terms of my own brothers and I. My dad was a painting contractor, and he had 8 or 9 guys that he had to keep busy. And right in the middle of everything else going on with the warm weather in Indiana, there's a window there where you get a lot of stuff done before the cold hits again. Right in the middle of all of it, my mother would absolutely insist on a 2-week vacation. And I can remember so many times my dad said, "Get in the car, we're going to go have some fun."
If you couldn't see Dave's face, you could tell his dad was cringing a little bit,
Yeah.
at least in his reenactment. And that was my approach too. Yeah, right. Like, but if you don't give yourself that choice, you find a way. Again, speaking from like some degree of privilege, not everybody gets that chance. But there is like, if you make it 100% top of the line priority, even if you have employees, even if you have people that you're overlooking, clients and deadlines and projects, like if you give yourself some runway and a little bit of lead time, communication with people around you, setting expectations, I think we can pull it off more than we think we can.
Yeah.
And that was a lesson I learned in this.
Maybe we have another one. Yeah, fire away.
Yeah, I think when you were talking about you wanted your kids to experience the eclipse, this question kind of occurred to me, and it maybe strays a little bit from how do we set our businesses up to do it, but like my kids frequently aren't into whatever I'm hoping they're into until we get there and we're doing it. So I'm curious, like, one, how did it go for you? Like, were your kids like, ah, like,
Because that's a lot of car
That's
time.
a really good question.
yeah.
So the eclipse happened for one day. We were on the road for 3 weeks. And it wasn't just drive there, drive back. That would have been they would have just revolted. My wife is the legendary trip planner, and if she's watching the live stream, which I doubt, she can watch it later. Compliments to her for figuring out how to make this trip educational and enjoyable for the kids, to make sure that like our daily drive versus fun balance was kind of there. So like what you're seeing on this is our Yosemite drive. I put a GoPro on the windshield. Did I already say this part?
Yeah, but
on
it's
the
okay.
stream, and then just let it go. So this was just a couple weeks ago. We were driving through. We did, if the national parks like in the Sierras you got Death Valley, on the California border, and then you go up and you get Sequoia, and then you get Yosemite, and you just kind of go boom, boom, boom. But there are dozens of national parks throughout the West, and we hit a lot of them last year, and again this year. And every single one, there's a little program run by the National Park Service called the Junior Ranger Program, and you fill out a little booklet with some questions, and they kind of like scale it for the age of the kid, and then you do a little pledge. It's adorable. And then and you get a little badge. It's like a little pin, and you can collect them. And so we have like dozens now. And so little things like that. She just found spots along the way, like what's the thing you can do? Where's a campsite nearby? And so we did some caves, Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico, Lehman Cave in Nevada, just beautiful caves. Those are very different caves. If you've been in them, they have very different features. Lehman Cave looks like what you would, it's like where the Disneyland designers went to learn what like a cool magical cave would look like. Like the stalactites and the stalagmites and the shapes and the colors and like the texture and stuff. That's like what they were copying, which is really fun to see. And then Carlsbad Cavern is just this enormous hole in the ground. And by the end of it, he was 5 at the time, my son said, I'm tired of rocks. Like there's too many rocks. But they loved it. They loved just getting to see so many things. And piggybacking a thought that I'd had that I mentioned to Josh before is so many of our vacations happen via air travel, which is fine. It's necessary to get a long way away. You can't drive to Hawaii. But what I love about this driving experience is like you get to see the land. You don't sit in an uncomfortable tube for a few hours and then you come out in a new place. And like in the dead of winter, I've flown from Spokane to LA and I walk out and I go like, this is like the shock to the system is pretty extreme. And it takes me not very long to get used to it because it's nice weather usually. But being able to like be on the ground and see the changes in terrain, see like Great Basin has these like weird islands of mountains throughout this massive region. You look at it on a map and you go, I don't know what's going on there. You drive through it. I drove through it and I was like, I get this now. I understand what's going on with the terrain.
I drove through it. Sorry.
There's a famous picture of like the loneliest road in America, and all you see is this road kind of going like this in a long curve. And I don't know which section of the highway that is because it happens over and over and over and over again. You go up a mountain and you go down through a valley, up over a mountain, down through a valley. In Texas, we were in this area called Hill Country. And I thought Hill Country was reserved for like West Virginia, like in the Appalachians, but it's a very like rural, disconnected kind of area of Texas. We stayed at this private place and a man was talking to us in English and I didn't understand a word that he said. Kind of rural. This is also where like in the news, Antonin Scalia, the late Supreme Court Justice, died in Hill Country on a game trip. Also, this is where Dick Cheney shot that guy in the face, where they have these massive private hunting grounds where they stock these properties with exotic animals like zebra is a popular one, or these weird kind of deer from Africa, or regular deer, or pigs, or sheep, or anything you want to hunt within some constraints. You can hunt it there, and that's what these guys were doing when they made the news. You just don't realize that until you go there and you're like, oh, like you can buy a zebra. You can buy a flock of zebra. Like there are signs on the side of the road. It's a wild place. Or like this area in Northern California that had these like shrubby oaks all over the place. And it was beautiful rolling hills, like kind of like if the Palouse had trees on it. And I was like, I had no idea any of these things existed. And if you look at it on a map, you just can't get the experience of it. So I love, love, love now, like the Great American Road Trip kind of ethos of just driving over the land instead of just flying there.
Can I jump into that kids thing? When we went to Bend and we go anywhere, we haven't done like a super big road trip. We try to get wherever we're going 7 hours or less, right? So, and we make it worse. We don't let our kids have technology when we do it. We like force them to sit together. So we're kind of punishing ourselves when we do that. Like I know that that's like a self-inflicted wound, but like we do it because of that same concept of like spending time together in the car, watching things. It's boring, sometimes it's awful, but we also have that mindset like, let's get there as fast as we can. And thankfully our kids are camels, so we don't have to stop a lot, which is nice.
Oh yeah, we didn't have that.
Yeah, well, and there is that. When our youngest were all still kind of in diaper phases, we'd put them in pull-ups and just like force them and go like, we're not stopping. Well, I don't wear diapers anymore. You are today, So I want to.
You got to get there.
This has kind of been brought up, sort of, and I want to come back to this because I think this is the takeaway. And regardless of budget, you should use your vacation time. You should try to take vacation, even if you just stay local. There's lots of ways to do that, and we can talk about that a little bit. But like science-backed, vacations can reduce stress. They can improve your mood. They can improve your sleep. Like there's a reason why we should do this. And my question is, did you experience that during and after?
Yeah, I think as like a partial business owner and previous like solo operator, and talking with colleagues, and like we have questions in our head, like what is the future? What are we doing? Like what is my mission and purpose? How does that line up with what I thought it used to be? And it's really, really, really hard to. And I'll zoom out a little bit too. If you're an employee, like you have challenges within your workplace still, whether it's a challenging coworker, employee, a project that maybe has some roadblocks or barriers or issues, like just work presents challenges, period. And it is so much, it's so nice to be able to step back and give yourself a little bit of space to like think about it from a little bit outside perspective. And vacation really, really, really does. And that's why when I sent you like the titles is like, take a vacation, your boss will thank you.
Right.
Because your bosses won't want you to leave. You're productive. You're contributing to the bottom line, and your presence that the lack of your presence means that like you're not doing that thing. You're not contributing in that puritanical way to the economy. But that kind of recharge moment, that ability to like stop and assess, think about it again. Like even when I'm editing videos and I'm doing a project, I can get really like just tunnel vision focused in on the thing, and like I'm trying to get it done, and I think this works in my head, and it's not until like I'll sit down with a colleague or my wife or somebody and watch it and watch their experience watching a thing to know how it really is going to hit in the world. And I've had moments where like, oh, I'm completely on the wrong track here, or I have to like make these adjustments because it made sense to me in the moment, but I was too deep in it. I didn't have a perspective of the person who's viewing it. And stepping out on vacation is a way to do that for yourself.
Well, and I think you also made a point, unintentionally, maybe intentionally, there's never a good time to take your vacation. I mean, your dad had passed away, my buddy Will's dealing with his dad for a year, and there's always gonna be something, there's always gonna be the next thing. So we have to figure out how to prioritize that for our own well-being, regardless of like what's going on. We can't set that metric of like, I'll do it when I'm less busy.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right? Like there's a way to do it. I think we just have to get out of that mindset that we can't do it.
If you say I'll wait for the right moment is never gonna come. If you, like we had 9 months of planning before we left for this eclipse. So we had a date, and we like just pointed to the calendar, like we're leaving on this day, and we're gonna go. And then everything, like the work up to that point, enabled that to happen to a degree. There was a gap in work that really was fortuitous as well. But if I had a week ahead of time gone like, what if we leave in a week? The answer would have been no. Like there was way too much to put together ahead of time.
Yeah.
So unlike Dave's dad, we needed to like plan it ahead of time.
I think there's maybe something to that we have to change our mindset as employees or solopreneurs or business owners that this is a valuable thing to do. It does have an ROI regarding the business.
Yeah.
And we need to plan for that as intentionally as we plan for anything else in our business.
It's essential.
Yeah.
Like you're hurting yourself if you don't try to build this into your schedule.
I want to hit a couple of like stats, see if this maybe throws out some questions or get your feedback. I was looking these up right before we started. 62% of Americans don't use all their paid time off. That's bananas. That's like 2/3. I can't even understand that.
So I don't use a lot of social media other than Reddit, and I don't know how that plays into like the hierarchy, the spider web of social media is out there. But there's a couple subreddits called anti-work or work reform, and a lot of the posts on there are like, and they're pretty like very like social media, internet, black and white about a lot of things, and they're like, when you take your vacation, you don't ask permission. You just tell your boss, I'm going. Like, okay. Fine, good for you. Like, that doesn't always work for everybody. And then the other thing is there's a lot of social pressure within a workplace to not take vacation.
Right, totally.
Or companies that will say like, our vacation policy it's unlimited.
Which has turned out to be like
Yeah, on paper it looks great. Like,
Yeah.
wow, unlimited vacation.
Yeah, can we pass the mic back? Yeah, no, on paper it's
so-
a great idea, but they have found it's not very effective.
Yeah, and then you get like people who just don't. I mean, we live in a very beautiful area with a lot of vacation opportunities really nearby. And I would say if you live in like a big metro, maybe you don't even have like a car or an ability to like leave your area, which makes staycations an option. Personally, my appreciation for nature makes that less attractive.
Yeah, go ahead. What do you got?
Well, I was just going to say, like, to the statistic you mentioned, as Americans in particular, we get a status bump, not by the work that we accomplish, but to be seen suffering, more or less. So, like,
there is.
if you have an office scenario, and you have one person, guy or gal, doesn't matter, they come in half an hour before everybody, they leave half an hour after everybody, and even if they don't accomplish anything all day, they're lauded for it.
Yeah, it's like our metric for what we deem to be productive or successful is based on the wrong things. And you're seeing that play out. I'm sorry, I'm jumping in. But you're
good.
seeing that play out with return to work, where the bosses have a physical location and they can't see their people, so they assume they're all at home just goofing off. But the science doesn't back that, or the data doesn't often back that, that people are just as productive. And in fact, when they're given a different a metric or something, oh, hey, there's your road to nowhere.
This is Death Valley.
Yeah. When you look at work differently, it becomes less about how do I fill these 8 hours, but more about how do I get done what I need to get done. Who cares how long it takes? Dean, in project management, there's a name for that, where if I say that something's going to take 2 weeks, it will take 2 weeks. Do you remember what that's called? It's like a syndrome or an effect or one of those things. But I think
It's like the goldfish that grows to the size of
yeah, exactly. And I think there's that's the same thing with work productivity, that if we see these people who aren't taking time off and they aren't doing these things, we assume that that's what everybody's doing and that's what we have to do, regardless of whether or not it's actually a good thing, right?
I mean, for all the bosses that are watching this live stream right now, I'd say like work culture and the example you said absolutely influences how other people view their options when it comes to taking time off and vacations and stuff. And within our company, I mean, I am kind of a boss, but we're small, so I don't have employees.
Right.
But I would hope that there can be a shift. And I think that it is shifting.
Yeah.
That this is an option and it's something that's good for you professionally and personally.
It's funny you say that about bosses, because I think bosses, and this might be a fun conversation to have, there's a tricky balance, right? So if I'm the boss and I never take vacations off, that sets a tone for my employees, right? They see that, they think they have to emulate that. But I've also seen the flip side, where if I'm a boss and I'm always taking time off, that has a negative impact. My employees don't think I'm taking it seriously, or that I'm goofing off, or that I'm just here to, reap the reward of all the labor that I have, right? So like, how do we manage that tension? Like that, especially if we're a solopreneur, entrepreneur, small business owner, right? I don't know, maybe you don't have all the answers, but I'm asking you anyway.
I long ago identified myself as a bad employee. I've been fired, laid off, let go. And so like the best thing that I did for my career was to eliminate an authority figure above me. And as I'm saying it, I'm like, that sounds a little bit pretentious, but I don't have a lot of perspective on that, because I haven't worked in a context professionally, like career-wise, with that.
I think it's just the rules, right? If you're the boss and there are rules, guidelines around vacation, you have to follow them just as much as anybody else. And maybe that's the way to think about it. You can't be taking 2-week golf vacations every month and expect everybody to be okay with that, right?
Yeah.
I think there's gonna be issues. Another stat that I think is, go ahead, well, jump in.
From a leadership perspective, because I'm ex-military, you really want to be seen chewing the same dirt as your people. So you're leading from the front, you're leading by example, but at the same time, they don't have to know everything that you're doing.
That's true.
So if you're stepping out of the office to get coffee and get a breather, you can just as easily say, hey, I have a meeting.
Yeah.
And then you do that. But yeah, you just I think you inspire your people by the most to see that you will do the same things that they're doing. You will suffer as much as they suffer. But again, they don't have to know everything.
I can't help but think about the trust you inspire, though, in your team. If as a boss you take 2 weeks off and you trust them to run the show while you're gone, that maybe there's a lot of trust there that can improve culture. Another stat, though, that I read is that Americans in general receive 12 paid days off a year, and that's the fewest of the surveyed countries in this study. So, I mean, I think one of the challenges, whether it's time, whether it's finances, maybe in some cases you just don't get a lot of option to take time off. So
Yeah.
how do we, what? Yeah, and we don't take it anyway, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, you're a bad employee. What did you do when you were working for people?
I didn't. I mean, I'm thinking of like I delivered pizza in college, and I couldn't afford to take a vacation if I wanted to.
Yeah.
So that was a factor. When I worked for like I was an intern with the church for a year. Again, too poor to do much of anything at all. And then my first like career job was here from 2013 to 2015 for a company called People to People, and and it was a travel company, and like vacation was their business. It still didn't take a lot of vacation. We were buying a house. We had our first child, but work trips were part of the package, right? So I did get to go on a trip to like Peru, and that was wonderful and amazing, and there was the cultural element, a wonderful experience there. But no, I was definitely not doing what I'm now preaching.
I want to ask, I guess, our audience, and maybe we can jump in and and respond to this. But what are some of the challenges that you all see, whether you're a solopreneur, entrepreneur, or an employee? What are the challenges that you face in trying to take time off?
I was going to kind of ask this anyway, and it fits in that. So there's an interesting tension that's developing for me of the difference between vacation and travel. Mm-hmm. And like the question I had
is important.
now that we can work on the road, and I mean, you could have a whole business. A lot of people are doing it. You buy an RV and you create content. You become a content creator. Like there's a lot of ways to work remotely, travel, and like one of the things we're talking about here is the importance of travel. Mm-hmm. Like it's one thing, like I can watch this live stream that you've created, or the time lapse you've created, and virtually see the world, but not actually ever get out and experience it. So there's like this idea of travel, but then also of unplugging. Mm-hmm. And a series of talks that I got a chance to listen to recently had to do with a Sabbath rest. Mm-hmm. So talking about like this ancient practice of, once a week, and 6th day, 7th day, like
which is absurd to think of as an American. I can't tell you the last time I intentionally took just days off to
like
rest
consistently,
yeah,
right? Yeah. And that we were talking about the intentionality of it. So yeah, I don't know that answers it, but there is this like, for me, like if I go on vacation with the family, I've still got my phone, I've still got my computer, and it's day 4 when you start to like, oh, I'm checking it less and less, but it's still like, did I really unplug? Mm-hmm. And then also like, can I just unplug at home? So I don't know if that answers anything or asks a good question.
No, it's great. It's good feedback. Does anybody else have like challenges or anything that you're facing when it comes to taking time off? Yeah, Dean.
2 points on that. And one, like to Matt's, 9 months of planning for a vacation sounds kind of stressful to me to like put that amount of energy into planning something that's supposed to be relaxation. The other comment to it is the anxiety or stress of coming back to work from having been on vacation, and the mountain of emails to plow through, and trying to kind of catch back up. And I think that probably ties in with your discussion of preparing ahead of time, like that advanced kind of notification to colleagues, clients, I'm going to be out at this time. So, having a plan in place is challenging if, you're in a role where you don't necessarily have, a lot of other people who are providing the functions, providing the work product that you work on. Anyway, those are, I guess, a couple of my comments on.
Well, you said emails you come back to. I'm really bad. I'll say in my out of box, autoresponder, I'll say, I'm out of the office. I'm not checking email. If it's an emergency, and then I give them my cell phone number. It's like, what am I doing? There's really no marketing emergencies. Like realistically, there's not many. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I'm second guessing myself on this thing because I had 17 days.
Yeah.
And it was 4 days before I realized I was really on vacation. If I only had 6 days,
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have come to a conclusion that after the 4th I was off the grid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
And-
that pressure would have been, get everything in you can, because you're going to leave in 2 days.
Right, and I think that's the point you're making is there's a difference between vacation and travel, and I think the distinction is important because we do travel a lot where we're going and we're going to do the thing and we're spending a lot of money, so we want to do all the things when we go versus let's just take time to rest, which isn't something else that we do. Anybody else have challenges that they've
I'll jump
faced?
in
Yeah.
to what you were saying. We took, a few years ago, we took spent 4 days at Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
And like you were saying, my perspective, the dad, is go, go, go,
And that's how we do Disneyland.
right.
Yep.
Like, do not stand around. If we're in this line, this better be worth it.
Yeah.
And I have a document on my phone with all 4 days
I
and
do
what
too.
rides we did
Yep,
on
I
each
have the
day and
same
how
thing.
many times. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, no, it's exactly.
Yeah.
Our list was we stood in line. This isn't all rides, but we stood in line for like 30 things one day. That was our day. That's
a good-
insane.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm like, no, dude, that was good. 30 rides in a day at Disneyland, like you killed it.
Yeah.
Way to go.
That's
But,
what.
I would say, like, Sabbath is a state of mind.
Yeah.
And I got there, even though I still had to fire up the laptop, even though I still had to do work, even though clients and colleagues had my phone number and we had conversations and talked to you and I talked.
Yeah,
Actually, we didn't, but we were supposed to.
we were supposed to.
But that was part of it too. Is like, we were driving up past the Sierra Nevadas, and I was towing a trailer. And what you said earlier about 7 hours of driving a day, towing a trailer is mentally still
Oh.
kind of work. And this vacation was mentally a lot of work. 4 kids, keeping them all kind of like to a degree happy and taken care of.
Yeah.
Setting up and taking down the trailer, hitching, unhitching, driving, going places. Like, it wasn't a vacation in the sense that like I wasn't drinking Mai Tais on the beach. There was nothing inclusive about this. But it was still, that Sabbath mentality still was able to kick in. It just took a
Yeah.
week to get there.
Yeah, well, you gotta.
One thing I was going to encourage everybody to do is, one thing I really enjoy, you know, I'm a food guy, so whenever I go to a new area, is I'll pick out like a mom and pop restaurant or something that ends up being really popular, and then I'll go in there and I'll say, hey, look, I'm only going to be here once. What is the one thing I should try?
I love that.
And oftentimes they will be absolutely overjoyed to recommend something. They will give you the context of why you're having that thing. And even in America, you can see history and culture sitting on a plate. And that to me is like probably the best part of vacations right there, is to experience things like that. Some of the best meals I've had in my life came from experiences like that.
Yeah.
Some of them suck, obviously, but yeah, but
Yeah, just because they're thrilled about it doesn't mean you're going to be thrilled about it.
oh yeah, there's been a couple of times where I've had, you know, I've done that and walked away pretty disappointed, but most of the time, no, it's really good.
One of the things I'm hearing though, between what Dean had to say, what Will, and what you had to say, is like play to your strengths, right? So when it comes to taking time off, whether it's a vacation or travel, you know you better than anybody else. So Dean says planning that much ahead seems stressful, so Dean's got to do what works for him, right? You don't mind doing that. Your wife likes planning the details. You do what works for you, right? We have what works for us. I think the first thing is do what works for you, play to your strengths. The other thing is you got to be intentional about it. And I would say even if you only had 6 days and you knew it's going to take you 4 days to unplug, what could you do ahead of time to get your mind right to be there? And sometimes you don't have that luxury, right, with life and all those things, but maybe the more intentional we are about all of this, the better off we're going to be, right?
I mean, from Jurassic Park, life finds a way. Like, vacation, if you set your mind to it, will find a way.
Yeah. And here's the other thing, and I don't know if you all as business owners or solopreneurs struggle with this, but I've been running my own business now for 12 years. If I'm working for anybody else, I'm getting a minimum of 4 weeks paid vacation, right? Like my dad worked for Fred Meyer. By the time he retired, that's what he had. So I'm thinking, I don't take 4 weeks off, ever. ever. I'm lucky if I take like 2 proper weeks off. So the other thing is like maybe understanding we need to reward ourselves even if we're the only ones. Like maybe the company needs to have perks that, and even if it's only we're just sitting in our own backyard drinking Mai Tais.
As like I empathize.
Yeah.
I understand your position because when you're working for yourself, you take a vacation. Financially, you're the only one who's impacted.
Right.
You don't get a paid vacation. Like,
Right.
well, if I step away from work, I'm spending money to do a thing and also not making money. And that's,
Or I'm having to convince my clients that paying me the full scale for that month is the same thing as any other month, right?
Yeah.
Like I have to either
I know,
plan ahead or
I
do
didn't
all
have
this.
clients that let me do that.
Yeah, right. No, because you're doing it's a deliverable based
It
on,
is,
yeah.
very much.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So there is that mindset for me too. It's how do I prepare for this? How do I justify it? And then there's the case, Charlene, you're in that boat. If you go, who's running the show, right? Who runs the brewery when you're not there? Those are things I would, that we have to consider depending on the business.
Yeah.
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 Any last thoughts? Yeah. Well,
I also think like it's a mindset too. Unless you're a Tibetan Buddhist, we can pretty much all agree that you've only got one go around on this earth.
Yeah.
And so they would disagree, but in that you have to make the most of the time that you have.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody on their deathbed, from what I've seen, and I know it sounds weird, but I've seen a lot of people die, and they only want to know 2 things. Was I loved and did I love well? Nobody asks, well, I wish I'd done more work.
Yeah. And we hear that and we know that, and that's like in a meme culture, I think that's one we see a lot of, but how do you actually do that? Yeah, go ahead.
There's a book called The 12-Week Year. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of it, but no, it's a little bit different than that. I think his name's Brian. I heard him speak and I read his book. And so every 13th week you're going somewhere to relax, but you're focused for 12 weeks. And then that 13th week you're taking a trip or staying home and gardening or whatever you need to do. So that was a good one. It gives you and there's a membership to it's like a whole culture, subculture. You can join the culture group online and get encouragement from others. And then the next step I took was I read Dr. Cal Newport's Deep Work. And it talks about how to unplug so you can focus, because our brains keep getting fragmented by checking our phones like I've been doing this morning.
I appreciate your honesty.
Yes, well, that's where real change begins, right?
Yeah.
So the 12-week year and Deep Work, those really were helpful, because when you accomplish everything you set out to do in those 12 weeks, that 13th week is very, very rewarding, and you don't have those little things hanging out in your brain going, oh man, I need to, it kind of helps remove that from you.
Yeah. I think there's, based on that and some of the other things I'm hearing, I think there's a lot of creativity that we have to explore too to make this work, regardless of whether we work for somebody else or we run our own show. Being creative with how we figure out this vacation and doing that is going to provide, whether it's creative with our finances, creative with our time. I think there's room there. And the other thing is, even to your point, maybe no one's going to pay you for not producing anything, but what I have found is when I'm just transparent with my clients, they're understanding just as much as I. So maybe
They're people too.
Yeah, and maybe it's, hey, is there any work I could do leading up to this vacation that helps you fund the vacation, right? Things like that. You have the mic, so it's you're and you might be the last one.
You
so.
called me out, so I might as well. So a couple things. When I am not pouring the beer or making the beer, I'm still working. Like I get text messages, CO2 runs out.
Yeah.
Beer lines stop pouring. They freak out. They think it's the end of the world. And kind of something I always told my employees if I was out of town, and you kind of have to, you learn to set boundaries, right? You're like, hey,
Figure it
sorry,
out.
but you're on your own. Yeah.
You're pouring only Pilsner today.
If the worst case scenario happens, you tell people to leave and you lock the door and you also leave.
Yeah.
Like, leave me alone.
I think, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because you're in this weird, as a business owner, your doors have to be open to be able to make money, but you giving even your team the freedom to say, look, if it all goes bad, you can ask people to go home and you can shut the door. I think there's a lot of freedom and flexibility, not just for you, but for your team in that, which is, again,
I also had to learn to do that for myself,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I've planned a few fun things to do this summer. And I'm like, I have no idea how I'm going to do that. And then I'm like, okay, well, I bought the tickets. I'm doing the thing. If I have to, I'll close that week. Like,
I'll
that's
work for
just-
beer. I
yeah,
mean, I'll just
like,
throw
I
that
have
out
to
there.
save
It's
up.
like, I will absolutely work for beer. Yeah, I will.
Now I know.
And I'll post on social media for you too while I'm there. Like, yeah, right. I know. Yeah, maybe that's it. It's like maybe people would be willing to help us if we just asked. I don't know. Like,
Maybe, I think what you were saying too is keeping it clean for social is like a little bit of DGAF mindset. Like,
yeah,
what's the worst that can happen?
yeah,
And if that worst thing doesn't involve like losing your house and everything burning down, maybe it's okay to like let the bad things ride a little bit and
Yeah.
not let everything jump to the top of the list. It's like, this is the worst thing ever. We need to take care of it right now. Oh my gosh. Chill.
Well,
and
and
that's where I got when I was
That's
out
a
there.
great tip, though. Working backwards, right? So I'm planning to take this time off. You have the ticket spot. What is the worst thing that can happen? And then how do I plan for that now so that I could potentially, and you go, okay, the worst thing has happened that the thing burns down. Well, there's nothing you can do about that anyway, right? So
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
But maybe trying to reverse engineer some of that calamity helps you maybe even have more mind space. Yeah.
But also, if the worst thing in my situation is closing, well, that sure gives me a lot of freedom when I am gone.
Yeah.
So is it the worst thing
Yeah,
or is it
well,
the best
yeah.
thing?
Well, there you go. Yeah, maybe you find some freedom in that. Okay, I'll take one last question or comment. Okay, you got to get the mic, buddy. And then we got to wrap it up. But yeah.
I was actually thinking about that. The catastrophizing
Yeah.
is the word that came to mind. And like it literally, until we spell it out, what's the worst thing that could happen, in our minds, like,
Oh, you'll spin out.
the whole world's going to end. It's going to stop spinning. But when it's like, yeah, oh, well, I'm just going to, have to start, even if you have to start from scratch. Like we all had to start from scratch. And
Yeah.
you're not going to start from scratch, but maybe you will and it'll be even better. But like once you like set that, then it's like, okay, I can do this because you set the date and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, and I'm 100% in the same boat as you. If the worst thing that happened to me while I was gone is all my clients fired me, well, now I don't have anything to do. Like, I mean, I have a lot to do when I get back, but I'm not going to solve that problem now. All right, so first off, I'd love to give a round of applause for Matt. Thank you for coming and sharing. I do want to reiterate, though, this one last stat I had is that the most popular trip in 2024 was a road trip for Americans. That was the
Hey.
number one thing. So
All right, well, I didn't need to say that then. I take it back.
yeah. If you haven't done it, maybe look into it. He's got tips for you. I also want to thank again Slab Visuals, Startup Spokane, and Brew Peddler because without them, this literally wouldn't happen. So round of applause for those folks.
Thank you, Nathan.
Our last event for the season is June 6th. That's with Katrina Rogers. We're going to have a happy hour in July, so pay attention for those. And one last reminder, if you're not getting my email to tell you what's happening here, give me your card, give me your email address before you're out of here, and we'll see you next month.